As what?
Monopoly.
Oh, I don't know.
So it was on G-Days a while ago.
6:59.
And counting?
Not me though, Tom, not me. Seven.
It's 7 o'clock, regular scheduled time for our council meeting. Mike, would you call the roll, please?
Collier Wise.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Holland.
Here.
Humphrey.
Here.
Mines. Price.
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Mayor Powell.
Here.
Student Representative Paulson.
Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3 are minutes from October 16th regular meeting and October 16th special meeting. Do you know of any changes or corrections, John or Mike? I move approval.
Second.
A motion, a second to approve the minutes as printed. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Adoption of the agenda. We do have, Mike, do you want to tell us the change we need for the
We'd
consensus?
like to request the addition of these following two items to the consent agenda. Item C, set a public hearing date on November 20th, 2017 for the transfer of the retail on-sale liquor license to Fireworks, Inc. for Dakota Brick House at 15 West Main, transfer from First Dakota National Bank. And item D would be to set a public hearing date on November 20th for the renewal of the resale on-sale liquor license for Fireworks, Inc. for Dakota Brick House at 15 West Main.
Thank you, Mike.
Move approval of the amended agenda. Second.
A motion, a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is visitors to be heard. Addressing the council. Persons addressing the council shall use the microphone at the podium. Please raise your hand to be recognized, go to the podium, and state your name and address. For items that are not on the agenda, members of the public may speak under visitors to be heard on any topic not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and no decision will be made at this time. For agenda items, public testimony will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item. Public testimony will then be closed and the topic will be given to the governing body for possible action. At this point, only city council members and staff may discuss the current agenda item unless a council member moves to allow another person to speak and there's unanimous consent from the council. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the presiding officer at any time. At this point, we do have a proclamation, and Steve, if you would read it, please.
Sure. Proclamation recognizing. There we go. Proclamation recognizing Small Business Saturday. Whereas the City of Vermillion, South Dakota celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 28.8 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States and are responsible for 63% of the net jobs created over the last 20 years. And whereas small businesses employ 48% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and whereas 91% of all consumers believe that supporting small, independently owned restaurants and bars is important, and whereas 76% of all consumers plan to go to one or more small businesses as part of their holiday shopping, and whereas Vermillion, South Dakota supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, we, the governing body of the City of Vermillion, South Dakota, do hereby proclaim November 25th, 2017 as Small Business Saturday, and urge residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Dated in Vermillion, South Dakota, this 6th day of November, 2017.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anyone in the audience that has any topic that they wish to discuss that is not on the agenda? Anyone in the audience with anything that's not on the agenda? Council, anyone on the council have anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, then we'll move on to public hearings. And item A, consideration of an application submitted by Alpha Phi House Corporation Board for a variance reducing the minimum front yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a parking lot on property located at 619 East Cedar Street. And Jake, please.
Thanks, Mayor, Council. So this is a repeat from the last meeting, so I'm just going to briefly touch on it. I don't want our hundreds of viewers at home to be too confused on this, so just kind of hit on the highlights of what a variance is. So again, our code lays out different requirements for height, parking, setbacks, yard, and density. And our code does allow that the council, acting as the Board of Adjustment, could go in and change that for a specific property if the owner petitions for it. In these cases, the burden must be put on the applicant to prove the need for a variance. And in looking at this, council is supposed to take public interest into account, so not just the immediate neighbors, but the city as a whole. And so we have a list of factors that the code lays out that I can read if we need it. We went over this at length last time, but there are a number of factors laid out that each and all are supposed to be considered in determining of granting of a variance. And so if council does decide to allow a variance, it does require a 2/3 vote of the members of council, so 6 votes would need to be in the affirmative for that. And as the Board of Adjustment, you're allowed to attach conditions to a variance beyond what the applicant asked for. So again, just the brief highlights of this case. This summer we met with representatives from Alpha Phi. They voiced interest in purchasing the house at 619 Cedar, which I have right here, a map showing where that's at, right across from their house. They expressed an interest in buying the property and removing the house and building an off-premise parking lot, which is a conditional use in the R2 zone, which this is in. So normally this would only need to come before the Planning Commission. However, at that time, Alpha Phi voiced their intent to build a larger parking lot than would be allowed in our code. R2 zoning, you need a 25-foot front yard, and in the case of a corner lot like this one here, you can reduce one of the front yards down to 20 feet. And so at minimum, a lot in R2 would need to have a 25-foot front yard on one side and a 20-foot on the other corner. So this is in the ordinance. We're actually required as staff to look at a petition for variance and give a recommendation either way on it. And so looking at this, staff looked at the determining factors, and we didn't feel that this met the conditions for it. And just to put a little more explanation on that, we felt that there were a lot of good arguments that's already put forth about this. They're in terms of member safety and removing cars from the street. However, those aren't really captured in our ordinance in terms of variance, and we felt that this was, being a policy question, was better left to the council. So we are not recommending approval. However, we certainly do see all of the merits that this could have, and certainly the unique nature of Greek housing. And just again, October 16th, this did come before City Council at that time. Council voted 5-3 in support. However, again, 2/3 of members are needed to pass it, and so a 6-person vote would have been needed. In this case, this Alpha Phi Corporation Board did resubmit their application, paid the fee again, and so we got it onto this agenda. We signed the property a week in advance. We posted the legal notices required. We mailed out to all property owners within 250 feet, alerting them to this hearing. And so, again, we want to give plenty of time for the Alpha Phi Corporation Board and their members to come up and state their case, since the burden is on them for this. But if you were to grant the variance, staff has a few recommendations we would attach, certainly in terms of specifically tailoring the variance just to apply to the Alpha Phi Corporation for the purposes of building a parking garage. You could also attach, although...
Parking lot.
Sorry, not a parking garage. My mistake. I believe there is no intent to parking garage. Bit of a Freudian slip there.
You just were wondering
I don't think
if we
the
were
funds are
paying
there.
attention.
So, I forgot where it was. You could also attach different conditions about screening, downward lighting. Those are also things that could be attached to the Planning Commission phase. Even if this variance is granted, Planning Commission would still have to give the okay for the conditional use. for the off-premise parking lot. And with that, I'm going to get out of the way before I say anything else silly and let Alpha Phi state their case.
Thank you, Jake. People in the audience, please.
Good evening. My name is Chelsea Asmus. As you may remember, I am a representative of the Alpha Phi House Corporation Board. We are a board of volunteer alumna who manage and maintain the chapter facility. At the last meeting, we believe there were some remaining questions as to our purpose for the project at the 619 East Cedar Street property. And since the full membership of the City Council was not in attendance, we are again applying for a variance to the setback on the north property line of 619 East Cedar Street. A point brought up after public comments at the last meeting was not fully understanding the why behind our project. And so we have several answers for you tonight as to our why. In 2016, a zoning ordinance was amended with Greek houses being moved from a permitted use to a conditional use. Additionally, this change requires that the applicant provide enough parking so that the on-street parking situation is not made any worse due to the new construction. This is what Alpha Xi Delta, another house in Vermillion, has been working with the city on due to their new construction. In that light, when the 619 East Cedar Street property became available, Alpha Phi House Corporation Board knew this was our opportunity to get ahead of the new parking requirement. Note, this is not a requirement of us as we are not rebuilding. However, it is an opportunity for a valuable investment in the future sustainability and safety of our chapter membership. During Alpha Xi Delta's conditional use permit process, it does note that Vermillion City staff pointed out in their agenda memo that the fraternity sorority row area is considerably landlocked on all sides. This makes it difficult for the Greek community to add parking spaces without pursuing the same process that we are currently. Due to the higher occupancy in these areas, students are often required to park multiple blocks away. This is an example of how far they typically are parking and the neighbors that this ultimately impacts. So this area right here in yellow is kind of the Greek fraternity sorority row area. This outlines area here in red is frequently where our collegiates are parking all the way out to. To this point, there is a university parking lot 2 blocks to the north of Alpha Phi. However, overnight parking is not allowed on this lot, and you also have to have a permit. There's a large parking lot to the northeast of the Theta, AZ, and Teak House, which belongs to Trinity Lutheran Church. We are also not allowed to utilize this for Greek parking nor overnight parking. I know Alpha Xi Delta did approach them for permission to park there and was denied. Fourth, we did make a reasonable effort to talk to our neighbors about this project. The map shows those that we have verbal support from, and yellow shows those that we have attempted to reach but haven't heard back from yet. Our methodology began with phone calls for those phone numbers that we were able to attain. For those that we didn't have phone numbers for, we attempted to get emails, and so we emailed many of those. And then third, members walked door to door to inform and discuss this project with those neighbors, and also when possible to get the owner information for the rental properties. So it was said at the last meeting too, and a point that I understand is that this could be a slippery slope of approving this. And I understand that, but I do contest that the slippery slope has already been established. While code changes over the years, councils change over the years, and the enforcement of different codes change and evolve, there are already lots in the neighborhood that are similar to what we're looking for. Just gonna show this one again. So this here is where Alpha Phi is located, and this is the university lot that we can't park in overnight. Just to the north of that, north of Lambda Chi, is a lot that is shared with the university, but if you notice in the neighborhood, that does have what appears to be, they're parking pretty close to the sidewalks there. It's only about 5 feet from the sidewalk to the lot. Also, just to the east of that, there's some rental properties there. They have parking on 2 sides of their property there, and both parking lots go all the way up to the sidewalk. This is Trinity Lutheran's lot, and their parking goes all the way up to the sidewalk. Just over here, we have a parking lot just across from SAE, which goes all the way up to the curb, and it's a gravel and dirt lot. Our neighbors, Pi-Fi, they also, on the side of their house, have it paved or graveled all the way up to the curb. And then over here is another church that has parking all the way up to the sidewalk. Now, I know that those are different properties, and I know that those are in different, slightly different areas, and were probably approved before new code came about. But I just want to present that because I do think that that is partially what has made that slippery slope already established, and also kind of why we wouldn't be the first ones to do a parking lot in a residential neighborhood like this.
Are you about done?
I'm about done.
Okay.
And actually, I can skip this whole section. So I hope that these help you understand why this is a safety need for us and not just a luxury need. We're not developers. We're not coming in to profit from this corner lot. We fully recognize and accept the financial responsibility that this is costing us. This is not a moneymaker and will ultimately be an expense that we will have to manage. We are willing to do this as an investment into the safety of our members. Safety of all of our students is a hot topic due to current events, and we ask that you look at this as a proactive endeavor to improve the safety of students and neighbors in this area. We're asking for this variance of 10 feet to allow us to provide a more off-street parking for our members in the high occupancy area.
I think we have to stop at that point. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Others may have their opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Tipton. I'm the current owner of the house. My mother, Joellen Tipton, bought that house originally as an investment to be a rental, and she was an Alpha Phi, and part of the reason she bought the house was its proximity to the Alpha Phi house, so that she remained active as an alumni in the Alpha Phi house and helped, well into her old age. And I think she would have been really happy with this proposal, just simply because they definitely need the parking, and she would have liked her house going that way. As a landlord, I've had quite a few challenges. The primary one being all the rise of apartments in this town have made it difficult to rent. The basement's been empty for over a year now. And as a single family dwelling, it has a very small garage and a very steep driveway, and the parking in that area is always difficult with college kids parked there. I also have had to replace the sewer system from the house to where it meets the cities, and even after that was done, I only did that a year and a half ago, I've still had sewage back up into the basement, which also makes it undesirable as a rental. I fully support this plan and would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, I'm Andrea Ronning with Maloney Real Estate, and I am the listing agent for this property. I've been working with Mark. I just want to note, first of all, I appreciate everything you guys all do here. I was on the city council for years in my hometown, and was even the mayor for a while, so it's a tough job, and I appreciate, it's a huge commitment. Anyway, so we have the house listed. It did not get a lot of attention on the market for several reasons that Mark pointed out. It is a challenge. It's definitely a fish out of water in that location as a house. Its best use right now is probably the parking lot and the rental, although Mark said with the basement issues, before we even listed it, we spent a good 4 months and almost $8,000 repairing the basement because of the continuous sewage, so mold remediation. So I can see why Mark is ready to throw his hands up and change the use of this property and to sell it. We do have several buyers who are just kind of waiting for the outcome of this to make offers on the removing the house. We're into preserving the house, absolutely. It's actually a beautiful brick house. If you ever had a chance to go in it, it was kind of the house of its day. The woodwork, and even through all the renters, the woodwork and the floors and the quality of it remain intact. So it probably was a very good build in its day. So it's worth moving, is my point. And so we are hoping that it will get moved, and we've also possibly we could get it moved within our city limits and provide another usable home and tax base for this city. Again, it's just you know, when I do think the best use of it is for the parking lot. I know the codes came along later, but I do feel that the highest and best use now is the parking lot for this location, not only because it is landlocked, but because of who its neighbors are, and because of the sewage issues. We also know that down the road, we're going to have some other student housing come along. We've got some high-rise apartments and possibly some more apartment complexes that are being dreamt of and planned of right now. And with those coming on board, some of these homes hopefully will revert to single-family homes again down the road. And so a few things about this is, again, the location of it, which location, but because what we know about housing today is that nobody just buys a house and has 1 or 2 cars. We have kids, we have grandkids who visit, we have, you know, extended families, so we sometimes see 3, 4 cars in a residential area or a residential home. So the impact of not having enough overflow parking on a residential is could be of concern down the road too. It seemed like my research said that it can have an effect of anywhere from 5 to 13% detrimentally to a house value. So I do feel that it's in the best interest for the city to allow the variance for this. And Michelle Maloney, my broker, she was an Alpha Phi as well, and she said when she was a student here, she often had to park almost to the park area, and she said that was a very frightening walk, oftentimes at night. So I'll just close with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi Council, my name is Katie Ulrich and I am the coordinator for sorority and fraternity life at the university. I am here to come speak in support of Alpha Phi's request to reduce the setbacks on their anticipated parking lot. There were 2 specific items that were brought up at the last city council meeting that I would just like to touch on tonight. The first was the potential for women to use an on-campus parking lot for overnight parking. I know Chelsea briefly touched on this when she spoke, but I just want to clarify a little bit. Because all of these women live off campus in the Alpha Phi house, they're restricted to getting A parking passes, and the only only two overnight lots for A parking is the lot to the west of the Munster University Center and the lot to the south of the Dakota Dome and Sanford Coyote Sports Center. The lot closest to sorority and fraternity life housing is an A lot that we talked about at the last city council meeting, but that does not allow for overnight parking, and that has been brought up to the university in the past, and that's not the anticipated use for it, so they are not allowing that to happen. The second is the safety and logistics of parking for the Alpha Phi members around winter when there are certain streets that need to be open for snow removal or other various things that our city accommodates for. This would eliminate the need for the women to be moving their cars far from the facilities or the need for the city to ticket or tow these cars. This law in general is going to help free up city space so that their neighbors have more parking opportunities, and there's also closer parking for the women when they are coming back to the facilities, particularly when we are concerned about is at night or when they're walking alone. You all also have letters of support from the Vice President and Dean of Students, Kim Grieve, in your packet, so if you can consider those as well. But I appreciate you taking time to let Alpha Phi come propose, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Bailey Moravec, and I'm currently the Vice President of Risk Management for Alpha Phi, but I'm also the incoming president. This is now our second time standing in front of you guys asking to reconsider, and I just wanted to bring attention to our members' accounts of parking and even my own personal account of parking within the neighborhood. So recently we received a letter of support from alumna Sarah Barthel, who was our president in 2015, and we do have copies of her letter if you would like to read those. She says, and this is her quote, "During my time as chapter president, we had multiple instances involving harassment from the renters who resided in the house that sat on that property. Some of these instances included the residents yelling inappropriate remarks to chapter members, as well as those residents frequently recording Alpha Phi members while they walked past the property or while they were on the chapter's lawn. All of these were reported directly by myself to the Vermillion Police Department, and claims were filed," end quote. As president, I want to eliminate these risks. Sarah did a great job of keeping us safe and informed, but I'd rather be in the position where I don't have to worry about the safety of our members when they're coming home at night. Knowing that they would have less than a 30-second walk to our front door would not only allow myself, but the House Corporation Board and parents to know that their daughters and other members of the House are safe. So this brings me to my own story. It was my sophomore year. I was walking home from the library, and I was on the street right in front of Pike before you turn down the street to go to Alpha Phi, and I noticed a car had driven by me a couple times, and I didn't really think much of it, so I kept walking. And so now I'm turning on the street going towards Alpha Phi, and it's dimly lit, scary walk. I don't like it as it is. I notice the car pulls up and stops at the curb, and by now I'm pretty scared. The male passenger of the car left his car running, rolled down his windows, got out of his car and said, "Hey, where are you going? Do you want to get in?" And I was terrified by now because he had started approaching me. And so I knew that campus was about a block away and it was well lit. And then I knew that Alpha Phi was almost a block and a half to 2 blocks away. And I didn't want to lead him to Alpha Phi because we have 60 other members residing there. So the first thought in my head was maybe I should just run in a different direction. So I decided to run back to campus because it's lit and I knew that there might be other people walking home. And I got into the first building that I saw that was unlocked, which was the Arts and Science building, and I called a friend and waited for them to come pick me up. I made them walk into the building to come get me so I didn't have to walk back outside alone. And the next day, I went and purchased some pepper spray and advised all the other girls in my house to do so, and now I do not leave the house without it. So at Alpha Phi, it isn't uncommon for girls to wait where they are and ask for rides. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a phone call saying, "Will you pick me up from the library?" or "Will you come stand outside on the lawn and watch me walk the last 2 blocks home?" because it's very, dark on that street. As young women, we're always told to be alert and aware of our surroundings wherever we're going. And I think that it's time that our house it takes that initiative to make sure that we are safe, which we are trying to do, but we need your approval for that. I realize that a parking lot isn't going to completely eliminate a risk of harassment, but I know that it would allow us to have a quicker response time if our members did need any help. As I continue to educate our chapter on being aware of their surroundings, I can only preach to the choir so many times. I know that our House Core Board members, as well as our Executive Council, have done everything in their power to create a safe environment, but now it's up to you to help us. For me, this isn't about the removal of 26 cars or helping remove the risk of door dings, which I have a very good one on my driver's side. It's purely about my members' safety. I am now in the position to protect 133 girls. And I know that if you were in my position, you would be doing the same. So if this is how we would do it, and this is the way to go about it, I implore that you reconsider reducing the setbacks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Dakota Weisbecker. I'd like to start by thanking you for all you do for Vermillion. It's been a great place to call my second home. Like I said, my name is Dakota. I am a junior Alpha Phi member. This past semester, I served as the Vice President of Chapter Operations. So basically what that means is that I oversaw the house and sort of the operations that ran within it. The side chapter of USD prides ourselves in our watch care program. So what watch care is we want to make sure that our members feel safe mentally, physically, and emotionally. A way that we do that is, a way that we could do that would be with this parking situation. We have gone to great measures to keep up the safety of our house and our members that live in the house. We have a door code system that locks and members have to punch in a code in order to get in the doors, but we can only, the door code system is a variable that we can control within our house. However, a variable that we cannot control is the parking situation. We recently ran a poll in our chapter page, and it showed that 93% of our members have routinely parked more than a block away from our chapter house. 76 reporting that they have felt scared or threatened when they are walking to or from their car. Those are just some numbers to give you. Those are actually our members, how they feel. It's just to give you a little perspective, we currently only have 10 open spots in the back of our lot with 60 members living in the house, so that doesn't really allow for a lot of parking close to our home. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Oh.
Hi, my name is Carol Voss Ward. I live at 623 East Main Street, so I live in the neighborhood of the lot that we're discussing. And the thing I'd like you all to consider is that in the end, this is a residential neighborhood. And there are many single-family homes. There are duplexes. There are some dwellings that do have multiple units, but like the sorority and the fraternity houses, they were built to retain a residential neighborhood character. And this property is not adjacent to campus. It is in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And I feel that by putting a parking lot on the corner, on a corner lot in the middle of this neighborhood is going to change the character of the neighborhood in a negative way, not in a positive way. And while I certainly understand the concerns and of the women of Alpha Phi, I'm also interested in the long-term effect of what tearing down this house, which was, initially a single-family house in a residential neighborhood, and adding parking that is not adjacent to campus will do for the long-term effect. If we look at the surrounding areas, there's a well-kept duplex across the street. There's the very well-kept Alpha Phi house. There's a nice single-family home. And while I do understand that some of these property owners may be in support of this parking lot, there is a larger city and a larger neighborhood thing at stake here. So I appreciate your consideration of these comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Ann Nelson, and I am with the House Corporation Board. You know, what I would like to share is Alpha Phi has been here for 97 years. The university has been here for over 100. And this is a college town. And as an alum with a daughter who's been here and graduated, and I know that there are grandchildren coming up the pipeline, we're going to stay here. Alpha Phi is getting ready for our 100 years. And safety is a really big issue to us. And having been on this board and having my daughter call home as a junior in the sorority house and say, "Mom, we just had a girl assaulted in the back alleyway because she couldn't find any parking to get home," that scares me. And as a corporation board, with the direction of our national executive office, who follows trends on campuses and who follows the numbers that are coming and moving through campuses, and we see what's coming down the pipeline, I recognize, and we're pretty quick to say then we're going to do something to protect the safety of these women. So as we probably shared last time, we put an entire new locking system on the house. We've really done what we can through the Watch Care program and education to help them. But I don't think any one of us are routinely walking 2 to 3 blocks to our home like we're asking the students to do. Being a realtor myself, I do agree and understand the need to maintain a neighborhood, and that's one of the areas where this corporation board is truly looking at making it as neighborly as possible with good landscaping, with the right lighting. We want to be good neighbors, and we feel like pulling 25 cars plus whatever rentals would be there off of the streets a block or 2 over helps to maintain those neighborhoods as desirable neighborhoods for those people as well. We'd like to help contain our members so that when they come home late at night, whether it's from studying or downtown activity or what have you, we know that not only are they safe, but they're not bothering others in the meantime. So we're looking at this from truly a safety issue. You know, as a college student, I moved into this sorority, and it was my home. And at this stage in my life, I can still walk into that house, and it is still my home. And it will always be my home that I come back to, as it is for all the alums and for the incoming members. So it's something where we're coming up on 100 years. Our goal is to maintain that property so that it is always neighborhood friendly and a safe environment for our students. So I thank you for allowing us to come back one more time, and I sure hope that you will see fit for this to be a good venture for both our students and for the city as a whole. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else? Well, we'll close that part and bring it to the council for deliberation. Rich, please.
See, a couple of technical issues. First of all, you mentioned that you looked over this and based on definition of a variance, these 6 different conditions. And those conditions are based on what it is now and changing it from a house to a parking lot. They can't have a house. It's going to a parking lot or proposing to go to a parking lot. That would make the rules different. And for instance, the very first thing that you had to look at is an unnecessary hardship where the absence of a variance to the owner can make no feasible or reasonable use of the property. Well, if it's changed to a parking lot without the variance, it would not be feasible. It would not accommodate what they want to do, is take more people, take more cars off the road and make it usable as a good parking lot. So in that particular case, I think we do meet that condition. Once again, this is considering it not as a house, but as a lot that we want to put a parking lot on. Number 2, the literal interpretation of the code would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other property in the same district. Well, if we deny this, they don't have a parking lot. If they don't have a parking lot, they don't have a place to park. And this would deprive them as well as the other neighbors, which are already deprived because there's excessive parking on that area and very little room. Third one, variance requested is a minimum variance. That's true. They can accept the 20 feet and still have 26 parking places. I'm sure they would accept that. Number 4, granting the variance will comply with with the general purpose and intent of zoning regulations and will not be offensive to adjacent areas to the public. The setback they're asking for is not elimination of the setback, but in fact cutting it in half from 20 feet to 10 feet. It will not obstruct the view of anybody trying to drive. And it will not reduce the aesthetic value of the property. It won't be a house you're looking at. You'll be looking at a parking lot, but not a Walmart parking lot, something I would I would be sure that us and the Planning and Zoning Committee would specify as to what conditions should look like and what the amenities should be to it. Other non-conforming uses of the structure in the same district cannot be considered as grounds. So there was no other non-conforming issues that were brought up. It was not trying to say, well, Joan did it, so we want to do it type of thing at all. So that one's also true. And the last one, number 6, exception and extraordinary circumstances apply to the property, such as lot size, topography, or other circumstances which are not in the applicant's making. Well, obviously, they didn't determine the lot size. They'd love it to be bigger if it was possible. There would be no need for a variance then. And as it is right now, sufficient parking isn't available for them or anybody else parking along there. In fact, it's kind of interesting, the example they show of where this would be, if you look at that, you'll see it's just lined with cars. And I can hardly call it attractive as compared to a house with no cars around it. So in that recommendations, I would say that, yes, you considered these 6 points, but in fact, I think they do apply in this case for a need for a variance, and I think we should comply with that. I do have recommendations, of course, at landscaping, no bushes or concealing structures, and adequate lighting, but that'll be covered by us and the Planning and Zoning if this passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Kelsey?
I appreciate a lot of the points that have been brought up tonight, and I think there's a number of issues that definitely need to be addressed. We know that parking is an issue around the university. It comes up again and again, and I understand that especially some of the requirements for the Greek houses have been difficult for them to comply with based on where they're located. To a certain extent, I feel like this is a university problem that they are asking us to fix through a really piecemeal approach, when really this is something that USD needs to take on. They need to figure out how their students are going to park, and I don't necessarily think that we should do it by putting large parking lots throughout our residential areas. If it were already something that were allowed, if they were able to fit it in under the current code, I could feel that way and I couldn't do anything about it. As it is, they're asking us for a variance. The threshold for a variance, in my interpretation, is fairly high. I think the fact that 2/3 of the council has to vote for it is indicative of that. We have very few things that have that kind of threshold for voting, and so I think that that is a message to us, acting as a board of adjustment, that we need to take this fairly seriously. I don't necessarily see how the application has changed since the last time we voted on it 2 weeks ago that would change the way that I would vote on it. So I will probably continue to oppose the variance based on that. I think absolutely some of the things that you've brought up need to be pushed forward. If we've got a safety issue in that neighborhood, it needs to be addressed. I will say I have not been aware of stranger assaults happening in that neighborhood, and I would love to hear from the police chief if that's something that's going on. We need to know about that, and we need to address that from a law enforcement standpoint. We need to address that from a campus safety standpoint. But for the folks at the university, on the one hand, to be supporting this, but on the other hand, not addressing that for their own students, I think is really problematic. So I hope that even if this doesn't go forward, that we can still address some of these issues through other avenues.
Other comments? Council? Steve?
I'm a big friend of the University of South Dakota. I was in a fraternity. I have a lot of sympathy to the arguments that were made today. I think I was elected to the council, and part of the reason I ran for council was to kind of maintain an aesthetic that was disappearing. And my initial reaction when I heard this proposal was that a parking lot in the middle of a residential area is not what should be happening in our town. We have had that happen on a number of places, and I think it is a detriment to that area. I am very, just like Kelsey, I'm very concerned about the parking. I know that more and more students are bringing cars to campus, and I know that we do not have enough parking. I think this is not, I also agree that this is a piecemeal solution to that. And I think the city and the university need to consider how we put together a parking plan that's going to serve the needs of students in that area. I don't think it's a good idea for us as a council to give a variance in this particular time for this project. So I'm going to be voting no against the variance for tonight, but I think it could be part of a larger plan in the future. And so I would definitely reconsider something like this in the future, but tonight I'm going to say no.
That was a problem. Thanks, Mike. Well, I guess to speak on this topic alone, I'd like to point out, and I like to say I like to agree with a lot with Rich's points about this type of variance. I feel like it's a unique situation, and with a parking lot, it's its own. And I guess the thing I want to point out is, as a council, we might not always agree, but the only thing I think we always agree on is our main job as city council members is to protect the citizens of our community. And if our community members that have spoken tonight are concerned about their safety, then I feel like my job and our job is to do what they feel best is to make them feel safe. So I will be voting yes on this variance.
Thank you. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to do this, but I'm going to. I'm going to suggest that you folks talk to your neighbors to the south and see if you could pick up enough footage that you don't need this.
Can you elaborate on that?
If you could,
you can speak to the fraternity.
that's correct. That's correct.
We have, one of the challenges has to do with the way the land, the topography of the land, and the ability to put the fencing right up to it. It's not that we'd be opposed to it, but it has, you know this better than I from working with the...
We seem to buy a piece of property after that.
Yeah, no, we tried that one.
You're saying that isn't an option?
No.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you all for being here. I do appreciate a full or fuller council chambers because I'm a firm believer in public discussion rather than things just sliding by. I also said this last time, and it still holds true. I love my AFE niece dearly, and she'd probably be sitting there with you tonight if she were in town. She doesn't even live in South Dakota anymore. I have to, like Carol Voss Ward, who spoke earlier, I'm in this neighborhood. If she's in the neighborhood at Pine and Main, I'm certainly in the neighborhood just off of Clark and Plum. Now, I can tell you that when we have visitors come from out of town, they don't have a place to park, and it's largely because of commuter parking, except for Monday nights when the sororities all meet. So in front of my own house, we have trouble parking. I do not believe that a parking lot is going to solve the safety problem by making it maybe 15 seconds quicker to get to your car, unless, of course, you have to park way up north. I'm also very curious to know why the university doesn't attack this head on, not only for the sororities and fraternities, but for the commuters. Again, there's a lot of parking by commuters. The reason we have no parking 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. so we can clean the streets or move the snow, mainly is because commuters park and they'll be there all day. I don't think that this is a safety problem, and please don't get me wrong, safety is a priority for me. I think the safety of people is top, number one. I don't know that a parking lot across the street is going to really change that. I think that's a problem that you need to address with the police. Now, we always have agreements with the campus police. In fact, we'll soon be looking at one, and it talks about the immediate environs around the campus also being patrolled by university police along with the city police. Those are the people who need to help you with the safety issues, as are the neighbors. And there are single-family homes still there. It used to all be single-family homes. The block I live on used to all be professors. And yes, there are more and more rental properties now. In fact, a big fourplex just went up just north of the Pike House. Your map stopped at Clark Street except for when you wanted to point out Lambda Chi / USD shared parking. The Trinity Lutheran parking lot is not an issue, and just because it was asked and refused, you've got to remember there were reasons for that. They wanted half our parking lot. That wouldn't fly. But the other big problem is a church can't change its tax status by leasing parking. So that was the main reason. Please be clear on that. I would like to see the university take hold of this, not only for Greeks, but for commuters. I don't know what the plans are for all the green space up across from Burger King. They did slip a lot in there somewhere where married student housing, family housing used to be, but there's a lot more room that could be used, I think. I don't know the reasons why the university won't take hold of this. I do know this due to a recent incident in Vermillion. Because it was off campus, the USD, to my understanding, does not have to report those crime statistics because it was off campus, not on campus. However, whom did it involve? I believe the highest and best use is probably not a parking lot. There are other uses. I respectfully disagree with my colleague, Mr. Holland. And I do agree with the staff that this petition does not substantially meet enough of the determining factors. There are, yes, already lots in the neighborhood. Let's not have more. The slippery slope started in 2016 when we allowed parking away from the building. So now we're on that slippery slope, and if we pass this, there's going to be a line outside the door for buying properties elsewhere in my residential neighborhood to put in parking lots, because that's what we want it to be from now on. The other big question that hasn't come up is, what do you do with the snow when you have to remove it? I guess you're going to have to put it in dump trucks.
Yeah, we hire it to be.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, but this is a slippery slope, and why make it even slipperier than it started to be in 2016? I fully respect all of you, and I'm glad you're in my neighborhood, but please, let's keep it residential. Thanks.
Anyone else? Please.
So as a student, I certainly recognize the parking constraints and do not like to hear that people are feeling unsafe, especially when they're walking home late at night. However, if you have a projected 322 Greek House residents in that 3-block radius, I don't know that 25 spots is going to alleviate much of that stress. And so I would agree that this is a problem that the university should address, both the safety and parking. And I would be willing to work with you if you would like to follow up after meeting. I'm on Student Senate, and I think that we would all want to get behind this for the community and for students overall, not just Greek life. So,
thank you. Council, what's your disposition?
Could I have one more quick comment that I forgot to say? Historically, there are houses that used to be at Harvard in Maine and at Willow in Maine that started running into problems. So they moved and built enough space where they had a lot of parking.
We looked into it. It's beyond our budget.
Council? Well, let's not delay this. Let's make a decision for the young ladies and their representatives. And so,
I move that the request be denied.
all right. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? No. Set the machinery for a roll call vote, please.
Which way is the way? You vote yes or you vote no? Wait, I say no. No. You want to say no. Right. I do not. You really want to say yes.
But it actually says yes on here, not aye. I think that's super confusing.
Oh, so,
Can you
right
write
now.
it down?
Looks like it's 3 to 4, and so that isn't the 2/3.
Well, 5 with.
I don't know, but.
It didn't go over. So it would be 3-5. The same as it was last time, so sorry, but it's denied. Okay, moving on. Old business. Second reading of ordinance 1364, amended by 7 traffic code, chapter 7, general traffic and parking regulations, section 7.072, to clarify that parking is not permitted in alleyways and be used for the common term alleyway in section 7.072 and 7.077. Addison, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like you said, this is the second reading of Ordinance 1364. As stated at the last council session, the administration has recently received requests from local law enforcement to review the legal language of Traffic Code, Title 7 Traffic Code Chapter 70, General Traffic and Parking Regulations, specifically in sections that are intended to describe the legality of alleyway parking. As affirmed by City Attorney Jim McCullough, we found that our legal language is indeed ambiguous in regards to the legality of alleyway parking. And so, with the intent to dispel further misunderstandings between the community members and local law enforcement, the proposed amendment was written to explicitly prohibit the actions of stopping, standing, or parking any motor vehicle in any alleyway, except to load or unload or receive or deliver from the vehicle for a period of time not exceeding 30 minutes. Provided, however, the Chief of Police may authorize time periods when necessary in special instances. The proposed amendment would also revise the aforementioned sections to replace the term alley with a defined term alleyway in Title 7 Traffic Code Chapter 70. This issue was presented to City Council as an educational item at the October 2nd special meeting 2017. At this time, City Council requested that staff pursue changes to traffic code to clarify this issue. Subsequently, the first reading of Ordinance 1364 was presented to City Council at the last session on October 16th. At the October 16th session, no comments were heard in opposition to the amendment from audience or council, and the first reading was unanimously approved. The only financial cost to the city would be the publication of this ordinance. Therefore, with all facts considered, the administration recommends approval of the second reading and the ultimate adoption of Ordinance 1364. And as always, a roll call vote is required with the second reading of any ordinance.
Thank you, Addison. I'd like, Jim, if I could ask for a clarification on the ordinance under 70.077, the last part, where it says, no person shall park any bus, van, automobile, transport, freight, stock, gas or oil transport, truck, or other like vehicles. Would that cover like wagons that would be left that aren't motorized?
Where are you?
I'm on the ordinance 70.077 under Part A.
Okay, you're saying that includes what type of vehicle?
Non-motorized. In other words, somebody parking a trailer or some such. That's why I'm asking for the clarification.
I think it talks about transport or other like vehicle. I think a trailer is probably covered.
Okay, thank you. There's no one in the audience, unless Nate wants to take this on. No. Council?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve proposed ordinance number 1364, and this is a roll call vote, so if the machinery would be set, please. Who didn't we get? Me. It shut off, so I'm a yes, so it's unanimous, 8-0. Thank you, Edison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council.
Next item is new business. Item A, annual write-off of old accounts receivable. And Mike, please.
The city bills for utilities, landfill fees, ambulance service, and other miscellaneous items from weed and grass tagging, mowing, snow removal, or damage to city properties. These bills are considered accounts receivable of the city and as such are recorded as an asset on our accounting records. To remove uncollectible items, the city council must take action as required per statute 922-4. What we're requesting is the action to remove these items from the accounting records, but collection efforts will continue. These accounts have been sent to either small claims court or a collection agency unless they have been discharged by bankruptcy. The accounts we're asking for is 125 utility accounts totaling $39,951.84, 14 general accounts receivable totaling $648.01, one return check for $127.69, 122 ambulance accounts totaling $68,487.45. As was stated earlier, we will continue to try to collect these accounts as they come up. I've attached a 10-year spreadsheet of the write-offs. Probably the utility one, we're at less than 0.5% of what we billed for utilities in the past year. Ambulance, we're right at 10%, and they're within reason, I think, for some of the prior years, and would recommend writing these accounts off and with collection efforts to continue.
Mike, do these go to small claims?
They have either already been sent to small claims or collection agency.
So if they're not collected, what limitations does that put on the persons that owe the city? In other words, do they have to pay that before they could get city whatever?
Yep, if we've got a small claims judgment, if they're trying to buy property or whatever, a lot of times it will come up where they credit check has found that, and so they've got to get that made right before they can proceed with that.
Okay, thank you. Steve, please.
Do I remember correctly, did we contract with someone to collect our ambulance bills some time ago?
PCC Incorporated does our ambulance billing. We'll also make phone calls following up, and when they haven't been able, they get paid a commission based on what they collect. When they can't get anywhere, they turn the accounts back to us and say that, we can't collect them. They're recommending writing them off. And that's what these would be. When they come back to us, we in turn will, if we've got an address or whatever and information, we can go get a small claims judgment. If we cannot find a good address for them, we'll send it to a collection agency.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Further discussion?
Thank you. Mike, just for clarification, we turn this over to PCC to handle, but then the finalization of it, they give it back to us?
Yeah.
So, because you recommended in some of the material that we not write off ambulance, but can you straighten me out on that, please?
I guess
on the spreadsheet, last line.
What that's referring to is the fact in 2012 when we were switching from in-house billing to PCC. There was no write-off that year, and so the next year the write-off was a lot higher because we were we had 2 years, so if you're looking at that as a percentage, that year was way out of whack.
Thank you. That clarifies it. I appreciate it.
Further discussion?
Move we write off
old accounts.
A motion and a second to write off old accounts receivables. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, a request to close West Main Street from the west line of the intersection of Court Street and West Main Street through Rodigan Plots and Market Street from the intersection of West Main Street through Rodigan Plots on Thursday, November 30th, 2017 from 5 to 8 p.m. for the Vermillion Chamber of Commerce and Development Company's Holiday Parade event. And Jake, please.
Well, on a little lighter note, here for street closure for the VCDC's Holiday Parade. This is going to take place Thursday, November 30th. And the closure request is for 5 to 8 p.m., so it's going to be, like last year, a standstill parade, ending with the annual tree lighting at the plots. This particular request, Fire, EMS, and Police Department were all notified. They had no concerns with the closure, and I believe we have Mr. Welsh here from VCDC to answer any questions. Otherwise, fairly straightforward street closure request, and administration would recommend approval.
Thank you, Jake. Comments or questions?
Oh, go ahead with your question.
This is for Nate.
No, it was worth your time coming.
Better take your jacket.
He's going to ask you for a pretzel.
That was my second question.
Or a McRib.
Yeah, yes, Brian, there is a Santa Claus.
Oh. Why is this parade on Thursday, not a Friday?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in years past, we have done it on Friday. There's a couple of reasons we decided to just throw up a few test balloons with a couple of our participants and even some of the businesses that we talked to downtown. And we basically just asked, do you think we'd get maybe more participation? You do get a lot of travelers on the weekend that are leaving town, and so we wanted to be able to just try it out this year and see if we might be able to get it. The other small thing that really did curb it is we do know that there could be a good chunk of USD supporters heading to the university, the game against Duke, and they'll be out of town on Saturday. So we thought, well, let's just try to push it up just one day. It's a good year to try and see if we can't get it on a weekday.
And I was thinking too, with school the next day, do you think that all the school-age kids will stay out later?
Yeah,
or?
That was a thought that we had. What we do look at, though, is basically the culmination of the event in the downtown part happens about 6:15, 6:30, and then the kids go over to the library at about the same time that they've done in the years past. And so we still thought with 6:30 to about 7:30, we should be able to still get a good amount of kid participation and not really ask them to be staying out too late.
And then my last question, sorry, Mr. Mayor, for holding this time.
To me, it's the rest of the people that...
I have a lot of questions. I'm sure you do. What types of crafts or activities are at the library for the kids?
That's a great question, and I wish I could answer it better. I don't know all of those crafts that go on. Although I do want to participate in that sometime. I just haven't been able to in the years past.
Tom?
I also know that once in a while, not every year, there are other activities going on the Friday. So this is a good test of that. And with that, I move approval.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. I believe next is bid openings, fuel quotes, and Mike.
Should have the fuel quotes setting in front of you. The first for unleaded gasoline with 10% ethanol. Stern Oil was $2.25.66 cents. 25.66 cents.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah. Item 2 would be 3,000 gallons in number 1 and number 2 diesel fuel dyed. The blended cost or average cost is $2.36.73 cents. And item 3 would be 1,000 gallons in number 1 and number 2 diesel fuel clear. The average cost is $2.66.38 cents. Second bid is from Brunick Service on item 1, $2.27. Item 2, $2.30. Item 3, $2.68. Stern was low on 1 and 3, and Brunick Service was low on 2.
Council? No. Steve?
I know, I'm sorry. It looks to me that Brunick Service has a lower bid on 2 of the 3 in A. I mean, 2 of the 3 in 3A and B. Oh, average cost.
It's the blended.
Is 268 versus 2. Okay, so you're averaging those two.
Because we since the cold weather, we've got to blend the diesel fuel, the number 1 and number 2, and we can't, if we get from one, but we can't get the other half of the delivery for a few days, then you would run the risk if you had just too much of the one, it could gel up in your vehicles. So this way you have one person brings them at the same time, so it's mixed.
Thank you for exposing my diesel ignorance. Any other questions about our fuel quotes?
Move we accept the low bids. Second. And the average thereof.
We have a motion and a second to accept the low bids. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next is our city manager's report. John, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of items. The city did receive a bike master plan grant from DOT earlier this year, and there's a series of meetings that are planned. There's a kickoff meeting, open house for the public is invited to. It is on Wednesday, November 15th in the Kozak room at the library, and that'll be from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Again, we invite the public to come as we start to begin this bike master planning process to the event on Wednesday the 15th. The next night, the ICAP group is having a public forum on the possible community center. This one will be at the High School Commons on Thursday, November 16th, and that is from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Just to note, city offices are open this Friday, November 10th. There are some government offices that will be closed on Friday the 10th, but city offices will be open. We did receive notice this week that Mike and his staff have done an outstanding job again. The 2016 comprehensive annual financial report that the city prepared qualified for the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. That is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. And this is not the first time. It's 15, 18 years in a row you've had this, somewhere in there?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So he's better with the numbers. So just again, kudos to Mike and his staff for helping to prepare a first-class report that was nationally recognized. And then included in your packet was a raffle notification. Dakota Hospital Foundation is selling an arm span of tickets. So probably Herbster has the best bet of winning. The arm span of tickets for $10 at their holiday decor auction on Tuesday, November 21st. And the prizes range in value from $30 to $300. And the proceeds from this raffle will be used for the Dakota Hospital Foundation's health and wellness events.
Thank you, John. Any comments or questions for our city manager?
I have a question. We know what a wingspan is. How long is an arm span and whose arms? I'm just curious. It doesn't really matter.
I think it's, they do a measurement of the individual's arm.
One or two?
That, I guess you'll have to attend the event to find out.
Is it two? Okay. Yeah. All right. So bring a friend to buy your tickets. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Is there any other thing to delay our...
I've been thinking, Jack.
You'll weaken the team. All right. Next is invoices payable, and are there any comments or questions you'd like to ask Mike? I see he overspent the budget. George Allen was hired as the football coach for the Washington Redskins, and the owner said he gave in an unlimited budget and he overspent it. There are just a couple, Mike, I'd just like to have you help us, like the airport improvements on 148. Is that the total, and then our responsibility is 5% of that total? 148?
Yeah, this is not the total. We paid some earlier, and I think there's some retainage left on this. But yes, this year, once it's paid, copies of the check need to be sent in to Pier, to the aviation office, and we're supposed to be reimbursed the 90% federal and 5% state.
Okay.
So it's a little timing issue on when we get that back.
So we're not obligated for that total amount. It's
In essence, yeah, that is the total amount, and we'll be getting 95% back.
That's what I was clear. Yeah. Thank
When
you.
they get their paperwork done.
Yeah, that's what I was clarifying. Comments about? Steve, did you make a motion? Motion and a second to pay our bills. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is the consensus agenda. We have 4 items. A, set a public hearing date of November 20th, 2017 for annual liquor and wine license renewals. B, set a bid opening date of November 21st, 2017 for remount of city's ambulance body on new chassis project. Item C, set a public hearing date of November 20th, 2017 for the transfer of retail on-sale liquor license to Fireworks, Inc. for Dakota Brick House at 15 West Main, transfer from First Dakota National Bank. Item D, set a public hearing date of November 20th, 2017 for the renewal of retail on-sale liquor license to Fireworks, Inc. for Dakota Brick House at 15 West Main. Steve? Oh, I'm
Second.
sorry. Geez, I even tried.
Second.
All in favor of approving the consensus agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Steve?
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Thank you.